So the difference between air superiority and air supremacy is that air superiority just means that you have an advantage over your opponent or adversary in the air, that you can operate more easily, you can inflict damage on them, and it is more difficult for them to do those same type of operation. Air supremacy means that you completely dominate, that you can operate without any opposition, that you can do what you want and not have to worry about being attacked, shot down, or opposed in any way. The U.S. has faced some problems with Iran, not with the types of air defense systems that it spent many airstrikes early in the campaign trying to defeat, but with other air defenses that are sort of harder to find and also very deadly. They can just be sort of stored in very simple places, out of sight from drones or satellites, and just wheeled out and shot. These have caused problems for U.S. air campaigns in the past. In Yemen, for instance, some U.S. F-18s had some close calls with these types of missiles. And right now, the fact that they are sort of dotted around Iran has meant that the U.S. has only achieved what they call local air superiority, which means in some places, some parts of Iran, they can operate that way.
Okay, so that sounds like there's a ways to go before we get air supremacy. What do U.S. inventories of missiles and other military equipment look like right now?
Well, I mean, those numbers are, of course, highly classified, but we can extrapolate sort of based on what we've seen so far. The U.S. used probably a significant number, hundreds of cruise missiles in the opening days of the campaign, used a significant amount of expensive and hard-to-replace air defense missiles, defending against Iranian ballistic missiles and drone attacks, and those things do put a strain on the stockpile. In the case of the offensive weaponry, it's not so much that it's going to run out. Like, these things are very plentiful, but it is the case that many of these weapons were designed to fight a much higher capability adversary like China, and they won't necessarily be available in the same numbers if that conflict were to occur. With the air defense interceptors, those are much rarer and are not meant to be used against stuff like Shahed drones. And so those stockpiles, particularly with Patriot missiles, have been running sort of dangerously low in some areas and alarming some of the U.S. allies.
Okay, you mentioned Shahed drones. They're described as drones, but they're actually these little missiles. Why are they so effective? What makes them special?
Well, I think, honestly, the main thing that makes them special is that they're very cheap. They're very easy to produce, and so you can gather huge numbers of them, okay? So that does a couple of things. It means that you can have a huge stockpile of weapons to launch at your adversary without much cost to yourself. And it also means that defending against them puts that target on the wrong end of the cost equation. So Iran has been able to sort of drain or deplete U.S. and its Gulf partners' air defenses and the stockpiles of ammunition with things that are very cheap and easy to replace. So it could allow Iran to continue inflicting pain around the region for some time.
Yeah, your reporting shows that Shaheds are about $20,000 to $50,000 a piece, and that's what Iran is using, whereas the U.S. is using interceptors. The PAC-3, for instance, costs about $4 million each, just giving you a sense of the imbalance there between how much some of this weaponry costs. So given all of that, Jerry, what does this tell us about the risk of the U.S. deploying special operation forces to Iran, the possibility of boots on the ground in Iran?
Well, I think the risk really lies in the fact that after a while, the U.S. and its allies are going to literally run out of high-impact targets to hit in Iran. They're going to run out of facilities that are exposed. They're going to run out of stockpiles that they can hit with conventional weapons. And so then they're going to be confronted with a choice. You know, if they want to continue to degrade Iran's military, if they want to completely replace the regime, if they want to, certainly at this point, open the Strait of Hormuz, it might require ground operation, and that's going to be a very difficult choice for the U.S. I can't say which way it's going to go, but it's certainly, very momentous.
To what extent was the U.S. maybe surprised by Iran's strategy of hitting military bases and oil installations across the Middle East, the Gulf Arab states?
I don't know that it would be a surprise. I think Iran's response was, in fact, very predictable. We saw this exact same sort of response last year during the 12-day war. After Israeli and U.S. airstrikes, Iran launched huge quantities of ballistic missiles and drones, mostly at Israel, but that sort of gave a preview of what they might do in a wider conflict, and we've seen that play out. I think that some of these moves certainly were anticipated by the U.S. based on their preparation for this conflict, moving forces out of bases that were within missile range and things like that.